Hello everyone, I am Simone and welcome to my channel. The Islamic expansion in the 7th and 8th century AD gave rise to one of the most advanced and sophisticated civilizations. This is largely due to the influence of the two great empires of the time, the Eastern Roman and Sassanid ones, of which large portions of territories became part of the Muslim domains. This is why my goal today is to discover together what happened in the first half of the 7th century in Mesopotamia, Syria, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Inner Persia. How was it possible that a people like the Arabs, always divided between merchant tribes and desert raiders, managed in just 10 years to reach the Indus River in 644 AD? This process crumbled the two biggest superpowers of the ancient world. The Eastern Roman Empire barely survived, losing, however, populous and very rich territories, and Sassanid Persia was completely annihilated. Shortly before the rise of the Arabs, the two empires had concluded a long and exhausting war that dilapidated the economic resources of both. The conflict finally ended in 628 with a complete victory of the Romans led by the Emperor Flavius Heraclius near Nineveh, which also led to the deposition of the Sassanid Emperor Khosrow II, victim of an internal conspiracy. Following this event, in Persia, in just 4 years, from 628 to 632, a violent crisis led to the alternation of a dozen figures on the throne. There were members of the Khosrow dynasty, generals, and members of the imperial court that reigned for a few months, and then brutally deposed. Even the authority of the capital Ctesiphon over the other provinces and governors weakened. In the meantime, the country was shaken by epidemics and famines, with a heavy taxation that harassed the populations to pay the war damages to Constantinople. These therefore represented ideal conditions for any ambitious leader animated by spirit of conquest. Muhammad's successors at the helm of the Islamic community, Abu Bakr and Omar ibn al-Khattab, were the architects of the great expansion of their people beyond the deserts of Arabia. Abu Bakr decided to send his best commander, Khalid ibn al-Walid, with a few thousand warriors to test the borders of the two great northern states in 632. The following year, he led the operations on the northern border of Arabia, to the Euphrates on the east and Sinai and Palestine on the west. The two great powers that dominated those places had never thought of fortifying their desert southern front, kept under control by Christianized Arab tribes such as the Ghassanids on behalf of the Romans, and Zoroastrians or otherwise trusted tribes such as Lakhmids on behalf of the Persians. The first raids of Khalid ibn al-Walid were a success. The Lakhmids almost immediately fell into Muslim orbit, stripping the southern Persian front and opening the doors of Mesopotamia to the invasion of 18,000 Islamic warriors. These attracted foreign soldiers from Arabia, and soon the Persians had to face an opponent in the open field, and not only in the usual hit-and-run tactics typically put in place by nomads of the desert. Khalid was perhaps the most skilled general of his time. Muslim reports show that he won 7 battles in just 4 months, including the ones of Dat al-Salasil, Al-Madar, and finally Ain al-Tamr. He also conquered Al-Hira, the center of Lakhmid power. In 633, Khalid faced in a series of separate battles a large Persian army that was gathered to throw him out of Mesopotamia. The Muslim threat had even brought the Romans and Persians' enemies together, and in the Battle of Firas, occurred in northern Iraq in 634, Khalid ibn al-Walid faced and defeated a combined army of both powers and their Christian Arab auxiliaries. As the Persians seemed weakened, Khalid decided to move to Syria with an army of about 1,000 warriors, where the forces of the Roman Emperor Heraclius were annihilated in August 636 by Muslims in the Battle of Yarmouk. At this point, due to the Roman collapse in Syria, Muslim forces were concentrated in the Persian front. An army of about 30,000 men, made up of new volunteers from Arabia and the veterans from recent campaigns, went under the orders of Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas. It had to face the Persian royal armies of Emperor Yazdagerd III, under the leadership of his best Sassanian general, Rustam, in 636. The two armies clashed in Hazidiyah, in modern Iraq. After a few days of battle, the Muslim commander led a reckless charge towards the Persian center, killing Rustam and destroying the morale of his army that retreated. Many were massacred, fled, and surrendered. Emperor Yazdagerd took refuge beyond the Zagros mountains in Inner Persia. Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas quickly took both Babylon and Ctesiphon, ending the long history of the Persian capital with a fabulous looting. Never before have the Arabs seen such a rich, luxurious, and sophisticated city. It is said that the loot was so vast that it was possible to distribute to every Muslim warrior the fabulous figure of 12,000 dirhams, calculated to be around $200,000 today, and over 40,000 Persian nobles and citizens were sold as slaves. The cities of Birta and Bud Ardashir in northern Mesopotamia remained under Persian control. So Caliph Omar ordered his commanders to take them in order to guarantee full control of these central strongholds for trade and defense of the region. After a few battles that lasted for a few months, these centers fell, and the two cities were renamed Tikrit and Mosul. It seems that the ruler Yazdagerd did not accept his defeat and decided to take back the lost lands, including Ctesiphon. As he was in control of much of Persia, Azerbaijan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and part of the current republics of Central Asia, he could amass a military force. Yazdagerd, who will be the last of the Zoroastrian Shahenshah, ordered incursions into Mesopotamia under the command of Hormuzan in the years between 638 and 640. Eventually, the governors of the cities of Kufa and Bosra, Ammar ibn Yasir and Abu Musa al-Ashari, defeated and captured Hormuzan, who was sent to Omar's court after the obligatory but probably artificial conversion to Islam. The battle that put an end to any organized resistance in Persia took place in the plain of Nahavand in Media in 642. All the most talented and important nobles who remained under the orders of Yazdagerd were killed or taken prisoners. It was the end. With no more forces available and a minimum authority in the rest of the country, the last king of kings, protector of the god of light Ahura Mazda, could only escape away from the Islamic advance that had no intention to stop. Seeing that no truce with the Sassanid Empire would be possible, the Caliph Omar had matured the decision of occupying every single part of its territory, up to its extreme borders. In 642 and 644, the Arab armies advanced in the vast strategic plans that included the Iranian plateau, Azerbaijan, and the regions part of the ancient Greek Macedonian kingdom of Bactria. This aspect of history is incredible, especially keeping in mind that in the same years Muslim troops also moved to conquer Egypt. In fact, Omar was able to plan and control all the operations that took place very far from his residence in Medina, by maintaining a strict control over each of his generals. The final campaign took place in 642, taking advantage of the psychological collapse of the Persians. Isfahan fell after a siege of a few months, followed by the whole region of Tabaristan. Between 643 and 644, in southern Persia were conquered Fars and the ancient capital of Persepolis, the spiritual center of the Zoroastrian world and place of the royal necropolis. At that point, only the regions of Karman and Makran remained under Yazdagerd control. Muslim warriors had therefore come to the gates of India, represented by the Indus River, which for that moment was considered to be the best natural border for the Islamic faith. Meanwhile, in 643, other forces were marching towards Sistan and Khorasan to the north, where Alexandria Arachosia, the current Kandahar in Afghanistan, was conquered, and finally Merv, the last stronghold and seat of Persian Shahenshah, was taken in 644. This represented the final annihilation of Persia, and Yazdagerd took refuge in China. From here, he tried again to organize a force to reconquest his lost lands, using Turkish-Mongolian military clans of Fargana and Transoxania. However, he was finally defeated near the Oxus River in 651, and then, after a short escape, killed near Merv. This date marked the end of the Zoroastrian Persia. In the main cities, a large part of the population, including aristocratic elites, by conviction or more or less forced indoctrination, quickly converted to the new religion. However, a large part of the rural population preserved their religious traditions until at least the 9th-10th century. Soon the Zoroastrians obtained the status of Ahl al-Kitab, or people of the book, as Jews and Christians, somehow tolerated after the payment of the jizya tax. The Arabs had conquered Persia, But soon the superior culture of the latter replaced the crude Bedouin traditions of the former. The originality of Persian culture survived the conquest, and the Persians always felt superior and different compared to the other Muslims, although united by the same religion. It was perhaps the memory of this ancient awareness that animated the Persians' mass adherence to the Shia version of Islam during the 16th century, as opposed to the Turks and Arabs who remained Sunni. A dividing line still in place today.